Welcome to our Week 3 Go-To Training for Project and Portfolio 2. Your hosts this evening are Jim Mullins and Nikki Bathke, and we're going to get started with a discussion about your discussion. You're diving into customer personas this week, and I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Jim Mullins.
Boy, that's quite a introduction, Nikki.
Did you like that? Was that good?
Yeah. I might write one out for you for next time. I think the personas are a great tool. They're used by especially large corporations to help them relate to their target audience. And here's how they do that. By imagining a fictitious person who might be one of their customers, they are able to then feel like they're able to relate to someone. A lot of times, I think people in general, our students among them, might be working on something, and you might be inspired by your niece or your son or daughter or your husband, your wife, your boyfriend, girlfriend. You might be inspired by someone, and you put an effort into something based on that inspiration, and it helps guide your thoughts. But when you might even visualize them. A corporation, when they develop a persona, are developing a profile of a fictitious consumer. They're developing a profile of one of their customers, a fictitious profile. It's just pretend. But by attaching a picture to it, by attaching a story to it, the people in the advertising and marketing departments are able to think of someone that they might be writing this for to touch them. So they might be thinking about the family of 5. They might be who has a child that's been hospitalized. They might be thinking about a single mother who is working at nights, but might be someone that they might target as a customer for their product or their service. By developing these personas, the individuals in this marketing department or in the advertising department are able to create some sort of vision that helps them direct their advertising to that general group of people. When they're able to do that, now remember the target market are those who are most likely to buy your product. It's not everybody in the world who buys your product. It's the ones that you target to advertise to market to. Because if you were to try to campaign in every corner of the world where somebody might see your product someday, you're going to be throwing money at the product. You're going to have these gigantic, enormous budgets that you're going to be spending more than you benefit from that money. So by creating the personas, you're able to focus your advertising, focus your marketing, and when that becomes more focused, you're able to create more meaningful and realistic budgets that are being used in the corporation. So I like to use the phrase, this is how you avoid throwing money at a project or a product. You don't just say, this is a great product, we're just going to spend, and you have all these sales coming in. The question I would ask is, how much less could you spend and still bring in the same sales? Or if you quit spending $100,000, would it only result in the loss of $10,000 in sales? That would be a pretty good deal. I just saved the money. And so if my sales go down 10,000, who cares? I just decided not to spend $100,000. These are all things that the people who are running the company have to look at from the standpoint of creating a budget. Now, large corporations have diverse customer bases, so it's not unusual for them to have a persona, more than one persona for their company, for their advertising and marketing departments to use. The thing I would add, and I'll turn this back over to Nikki. I had a student one time who was very creative, really good sense of humor, and and wrote about a persona, about an individual who was, I think, 28, 29 years old, lived at home, didn't have a job, didn't want a job, like sitting on his mother's couch and watching television. And he was the client for some kind of snack food like Doritos or something. Well, it was really funny. The way he wrote it was really, really funny. I gave him a really, really bad grade for it. And the reason was that this isn't a creative writing course. This is supposed to be a realistic endeavor that marketing and advertising are trying to strive for, to reach a broader range of people. So their target market is not going to be someone who is unemployed, who has to depend on his mother to buy the groceries so he can eat Doritos. Okay, so it needs to be a realistic presentation.
So to that end, we've offered up Jose as an example, one of many, of a good, buyer persona. This happens to be a persona for someone who is a regular flyer because he's a vice president of engineering, and he does a lot of traveling around the United States. And so we write a backstory for him. We give him his role, his goals, everything, right down to his age, his education, and his hometown. And we, create a realistic being or a likeness of a human being that it would be really easy for us to write a marketing message to or write an advertisement to. This looks like a guy who would try to, maybe set up a silver or a gold membership with a certain airline so that as he's traveling all over North America and beyond, he would have an opportunity to use the VIP lounge, for instance, or get priority seating or get an upgrade to business class after a fewer number of miles. These are the kinds of things that a person who would choose an airline carefully would really be interested in. So, we can talk to him about, we can use hooks within his family story, within his career story, to speak directly to him. And that's what makes buyer personas effective. Any questions?
I'll add one thing. When you're responding to your classmates, because this is the discussion board, so you will be responding to the posts that your classmates make, try to stay away from asking questions about Jose or whoever's family and how their sister is now after the operation and stuff. This is a fictitious character. The emphasis that I would like to see members of my class focus on when they're looking at a persona is to make statements about whether they think that persona fit what they deem to be the target market for that company. Or should it have taken do you think it should have taken a different approach to that individual?
Okay.
So, who do you think that target market should be for fill in the blank, whatever company it is? And how do you think they should have approached that? Now, rather than trying to talk about, the fictitious character's sick sister, or I've had students who've approached that as though they're talking to their neighbor across the fence about somebody who's real, and these are fictitious characters.
Thank you for that. So what I put in here, the comments I put in the discussion, focus on the product and the fit of the persona. And one of the other things that I suggest to my students as well is to continue with the research that your peer did. Maybe if this was a buyer persona for Southwest Airlines, you could actually add some information about Southwest Airlines, and then talk about whether or not the persona is a good fit after having added to or elevating the conversation through additional research. So it's never a situation where you have to simply criticize your peer or tell them that what they didn't do right, like they didn't add enough detail. A response post is an actual opportunity for you to augment what they did and add a little bit of research and lead by example. Anyway, that's what I suggest in addition to what Jim suggested. And I find it to be a really good alternative to ignoring the student whose post was not as good, but at the same time, finding something positive to do with that post, especially if they're talking about a brand or a product that you actually like and have something to say about. Do we have any questions so far? Okay. All right. It looks like none at this time. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pop open my webcam since I'm talking. And I didn't just get back from the gym like Jim did. So I'm actually halfway presentable. There we
I'm a
go.
mess.
Okay. So hello again. So what we're going to do next, now that we've talked about the discussion board, first post is due this evening, so it was kind of the high priority, is we're going to move on to our practice marketing assignment, which is the big assignment for week 3. And then we're going to wrap up with a discussion about the big assignment for week 4. We aim to end by no later than 8:45, so that if you've got some questions, there's a chance for you to ask those and we can wrap up within an hour. Okay, so this was something that if you already took Introduction to Marketing at Full Sail, you're familiar with. This is the practice marketing platform. It's immersive and responsive, and it's a McGraw-Hill product. And if you took marketing here, you already had an opportunity to get familiar with it and understand that it is a virtual opportunity to behave as though you are the marketing director and to make all the decisions that are related to those 4 Ps. Remember those 4 Ps? It's product, price, place, and promotion. So hopefully you went ahead and you registered for the November game. There's a separate registration activity, and all you have to do is click on the link and use the same login and password that you did when you did this game in marketing. Hopefully you've got that out of the way so that you're ready to play the game. I would not wait another minute if you haven't registered yet. If there's a chance that you got transfer credit for Introduction to Marketing, or if you took it more than a year ago, you're going to have to get a new license. And it gives the distribution, the materials department, a day or two to get that done for you. You do not want to wait until Sunday afternoon to call them, having never looked at this assignment before, because they are closed on Sunday. In fact, they're closed on Saturday. They won't be able to help you, and you'll get a 0 for the assignment. We don't want that to happen. Okay, so word of warning is over. So what I want to do now is just kind of run through a sample. I want to run through the demonstration right here, and we'll just do one turn, and I think visually seeing it will help you recall how we play the game. The first thing that we do is we go over here and we choose an audience. And we have 5 different target market segments here. The outdoorsmen, the working class people who are commuting to work, school children, fashionistas, and of course, college students. So since we're in college, how about we just choose the college students? We're going to select them as our target segment. And once the button turns green, that says our segment is targeted. This will also be a great place for us to get feedback later on. You can see that there are different tabs here, and these will populate once we make a decision. Okay, so next thing we do is we go over here to the product and we design the product. You'll see that you have opportunities. Let's make this larger. You'll have opportunities to choose the shape, the straps, the features, the materials, and the color. Okay, so for the shape, we're going to go with this. For the straps, we're going to go with this. And make sure that you don't just, wantonly click buttons. Make sure that you do research first. I'm clicking quickly, but that's because I kind of know what's going to happen. What you want to do is you want to read the PDF attachment called Inside the Backpack, and that's going to give you great tips as to what features your customers actually like best, what color they like best, where they buy their items, so you know where to distribute, all that stuff. Okay, so the features, we're going to add a water bottle, okay? And then for the material, we're going to go with this one right here. It's eco-friendly. College students like that. And then for the color, we're going to choose blue. All right, so we've got our product pretty well shaped up. And I think to start, we're not going to, push the limit too much. We're going to go right at the higher end of what the college students will accept, but we also don't want to go so high that we can't also sell it at the discount retailers, because that's a big marketplace for us. So we want to keep it at 40. Now we're going to go over here and we're going to choose all the places that are appropriate for us to sell. Now, oops, it looks like I did not select my price. Let's set the price at 40 again. There we go. Now, see, I forgot to hit the button. We have to confirm changes. Now, when I go over here, we're going to get some much better results when we look at the distribution channels. Take a look at this. Okay? Our retail price is $40. Our profit for bag is $29. That means it costs us $11 to make the bag, right? Now, there is no retail cut here because this is direct from the factory floor, but every place else there's going to be a cut. Look at this, the discount retail chain, they take a 50% cut. That's pretty serious, but we're still making $9 per bag. So what we're going to do is we're going to go in and we're going to accept distribution at every place that will allow us to. That gives us the widest distribution, okay? And we'll keep going around the circle. Here's that discount retail chain. See how it tops out at 40? So we're just going to try it. You know, you can try different things. Okay, we can do this one. And this outlet is a fashion boutique. Notice that they don't price anything below $60, so we're not eligible to sell our wares there. And here, the high-end outdoor store, their accepted price range doesn't go below 50, so we're not able to distribute there either. Now, the fourth P, that's our promotion. And the college students, they really kind of dig, you know, an eco-friendly approach, and they dig the fact that their bag might be funky in appearance. At least that's the marketing message that we want to offer them. I want you to notice that this is a highly competitive marketing message and that the clarity is very strong at 80%. If we were to deselect one and just go with a single marketing message, our clarity would be very, very clear. But we're going to pick up a few extra people by adding a second marketing message. I want you to take a look at what happens over here. See, we hit 40% of university students with one message, but we go up to 44% if we choose two messages, and we retain a lot of clarity. So that's how the marketing messages work. And then the final thing that we have to do is we have to choose some places for them to see these messages. Okay? Now, university students are not into print, but they are into internet, especially social media sites. So we're going to start by advertising there. Okay? Television's very expensive, so I tend to stay away from this until after we've really established ourselves and we're selling many, many bags per turn. Radio, we're going to try some top 40. That reaches a fair number of university students, and it's not very expensive. And again, we're going to stay away from posters because college students are not as big into print as they are into other media types. And you can see that just by clicking through, and you can see what a tiny percentage right here of university students actually pay attention to postage. Okay, posters. So now that we've done all that stuff, we're able to end our turn. Yes, end our turn, and let's see if we sold any bags. All right, we sold 464 bags. Our total revenue was about $11,000. Now, it cost us this much money to manufacture, and that means our gross profit was about $5,800. Now we have to subtract our marketing costs, and that gives us a net profit of about $32. Now, we started with a bank balance of $10,000. We can add the 32, and now we have a bank balance of $13,256. So the first thing that we do before we congratulate ourselves is we go over here and we check out our college students and see what they had to say. Okay, now we are ML Backpacks. We're the turquoise line, and we happen to do very well the first time. That probably won't maintain because remember, you've got competitors in this game that you're working against. Here is the students' feedback. They say it's not really the sort of backpack they like, so we probably need to take a look at some features. We probably need to take a look at the shape or the straps or something like that and make it something that they do like. It has some of the features they're looking for. They do like the color. The size is a bit small and the price is a bit high. Now, this works. When the price is high but still in my budget, they'll pay for it. That's okay. Don't change that. Okay, here's the other important thing to note. Take a look at all of these platforms. They are now populated with competitors. These didn't exist at the beginning of the first turn, but now they do. Especially take a look at who's also selling to university students and see what they might be doing well, right? These guys are selling about 15% of their bags to university students. We're selling 23% of our stuff to university students. So we're still in first place, but it does behoove us to take a look at what other people are doing and where they're selling their stuff. Okay. So let's take a look at this guy. Okay. He's the one who's selling some to university students, and we can go through here and we can see exactly how much money he spent on advertising. We can see where he's distributing. We can see what promotion messages he's using, and we can see if there is anything that we can learn by all the choices that he's made. Okay. The other thing that you can do is you can go to the leaderboard and you can take a look at how much money all of the competitors, including you, are making at any given time. Right now, again, we're doing the best. You can see our net profit is positive. Everybody else is negative. I promise you that will change because this game is interactive, and what will happen is all of these competitors over here will start to respond to the choices that you've made, and they'll try and steal your competition. If you're doing really well, they will mimic you, which makes sense, right? That's called benchmarking. Whenever we see someone doing well, we want to get in on that game. We want to get in on that money. And so we start doing what the other successful people are doing, right? So that's just kind of a little background about how you play the game. Um, Again, for those of you who took Introduction to Marketing, you already have a license for this game. All you have to do is go to the Register For activity and make sure that you're signed up for it according to the instructions. If you got transfer credit for marketing, or if it's been more than a year since you took it, you definitely want to call tech support and you want to, get a message to Materials so that they can get you a new license. All of that is in the Register For activity near the top of your class page. Okay, so this is what's going to happen when you start getting results. Okay, let's go to this slide right here. What's going to happen is you're going to see this panel pop up each time you take a turn. You'll take a total of 32 turns, which is equivalent to 32 quarters or 8 full years of business. We will have an opportunity to make a lot of money. You and your peers, if you're very successful, are going to make hundreds of thousands of dollars in net profit, and that's going to feel pretty good. You'll see that you continue to make more and more sales, and the number of bags that you're selling each quarter goes up and up. Now, if for some reason you don't like the results of the game that you played the first time, we have set it up so that you can play it twice. You can play again if you'd like, using what you learned, and see if you can get a better result. That's just if you're extra competitive. You will get 50% of your score just for completing the game. The other 50% of your score is based on your critique of how well you played the game. So that critique will be scored. It will be scored on an ABCD basis, and it will be reflective of how reflective you are and how many details you share. Remember, it's always a good idea to include both qualitative and quantitative information. That means we want the stories as well as the metrics. So anyway, I hope you guys have fun playing this game. I hope that you were looking forward to maybe seeing this game again after you learned a little bit about it in marketing. And now let me pause and ask if there are any questions about the practice marketing game. Okay, the question is, will we be able to reference the results panel after we complete the game? And the answer is yes. You absolutely will be able to go back to this. There's also a page, and I can't get to it because I'm not a student, but there's another page that will show that your game is completed, and it will have a red tab on it that says completed or game finished. On that particular screen, there is an Excel spreadsheet export, and you can export it and you can get every single decision that you made and every bit of money that changed hands for each one of the 32 quarters. It's an Excel spreadsheet that has 32 tabs on it, and so you can go back and you can get every single detail of every single decision that you made. It will really help you remember how you responded and where things may have taken a turn for the better or taken a turn for the worse throughout the game. So thank you for that question. Very good question. Okay. Any other questions? All right. If anything occurs to you, just type into the chat box, or if you're listening to this later, please send a message to your instructors and they'll be happy to help you out. So, the final thing we'd like to talk to you this evening about is the formal business report that you'll submit in week 4. It should be open right now so that you're able to review it and see what's expected. What this is a market analysis report, and it is the culmination of all the hard work that you've been doing in weeks 1, 2, and 3. You'll notice that you had 2 major research assignments to complete. One was called Initial Company Research, and the other was called Environmental Analysis. You'll also note that we've been assisting you in gathering information through your discussion boards, information on competition, information on the SWOT analysis, and in week 3, we're helping you develop buyer personas, which could be very useful in assisting you in making recommendations when you put together your report in week 4. So all of these things are designed to help you create a meaningful and persuasive market analysis report. You probably already know this, but we'll repeat it one more time. You are exploring one brand all month. You're not changing course each week and choosing a different brand. That would not help you do a market analysis report in week 4. This is a snowball assignment, which means that all of the preliminary work feeds into the final asset, the final deliverable that you'll send in week 4. One of the things that both Jim and I have noticed among students who otherwise are doing a very good job for the most part is that the executive summary that happens at the very beginning of this formal business report is a little bit lacking in detail, a little bit lacking in meat and potatoes. So what we're going to do here is we're just going to share with you an example of a good executive summary and then an example of a not so good executive summary. This is not the only time you'll see this. These examples are also included in a PDF attached to the instructions in week 4, and it's called How-To Tips, right? How-To Tips for your market analysis report. So let me move forward and just kind of give you an opportunity to absorb this. I'll give you a couple of minutes to read it, and for those of you who are listening at home, please feel free to do the same. When you're finished, let us know. Okay, so can you recognize that this executive summary is kind of a, let's call it it's a summary, obviously, but it mirrors every single section that's also in the formal business report. So it's like a thumbprint. It's an opportunity for whoever might run a search for the brand that you're talking about in the report to get a very quick snapshot of everything that you talk about without going into granular detail. The executive summary should demonstrate not only the reason why the research was done for the client or the customer, but it should also touch on how it was done, what the findings were, the conclusions, and then finally, briefly, what the recommendation was. So instead of doing something like this is a not so good example. I'll go back to it, don't worry. We're doing this instead, which is really a miniature report in the space of a couple of paragraphs. By the time a seeker or someone who has run a search for something about the brand that you've just reported on, by the time they finish reading this executive summary, they should know exactly whether or not this is the article that they want to download and read in detail, because it will or will not offer the information that they're seeking. That's the purpose of an executive summary. So it's the one area that we really need a little bit of work on. And so I want to bring it up here in our go to training so that it's available for you to listen to now and for anyone else to look at later. Let me go back to the not so good example and give you a chance to read that one as well. Okay, so what was this missing that the other one had? Where does this one come up short? Okay, so yes, our audience correctly says that there's no methodology. It doesn't tell us how they obtained the information. It also is not really good at telling us what the actual conclusions or recommendations were. It just kind of goes off on a tangent a little bit. The hard part with that is that even though the writer probably knows exactly what he or she was talking about, they don't help us understand what they were talking about. So if you use that step-by-step method to put together the executive summary and just put in one sentence for each of the sections of the paper, you'll probably wind up doing a really good job on the executive summary despite yourself. And it's almost that easy. The template that we provide for you gives really detailed instructions on what to include in each section. So really the biggest job for you is to decide what parts of the research that you've gathered are most important for your brand going forward. Okay? You're not going to include everything. You're not just going to copy and paste all the research that you've done and call that your findings. You're going to select what's most salient and most impactful at this moment in time. You're going to draw your conclusions from that, and then you're going to make your recommendations based on that. Right?
I think, Nikki, for the students who are reading this at this moment, when you read the second one, it's talking about what the study will do. And more and more of my students are writing this as though it's the introduction to the executive summary. I think it throws them off that it's the first section of the executive summary is the first section of the final report. And so they see it at the beginning and they're writing it as though this is what this report will do. They're writing it as an introduction. But the executive summary should tell you that it summarizes all the work you've done over the last, at this point, over the last 4 weeks. So it's all come together here. You should not be introducing anything new in the executive summary. This is not where you, pop out of a cupboard or a closet or something and say, surprise, here's some more information. The information should have been covered in some of the other sections of your reports in week 1, 2, and week 1 and 2. And it should come together then in this executive summary. So just another tip.
Okay, good tip. And the final tip that we'd like to offer about the final report goes something like this. I've just typed into the chat box that the recommendations are to be SMART. You've heard of SMART goals. So what we're going to do is SMART recommendations. Recommendations, rather than being very general, need to be specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. Let me give you an example. You could say that your client needs to have a better social media presence for their brand. Okay, they probably already knew that, but let's give them some action steps that are future-oriented. Action steps that are future-oriented allow your client or your boss to really sink their teeth into it and start talking about it and how they're going to be able to apply those ideas to their operations and move forward from there. and they might tweak it this way or that, but people really need to be guided. Let me put it this way, it's much easier to edit someone's work than it is to write it from scratch. It's your job as the analyst to make those recommendations from scratch, and it's your client's job to edit them. That's how it works. So let's go back to the executive summary. And what they've done here in recommendations is really generalized, and that's appropriate because it's executive summary. They say that they discussed recommendations including improve increasing inventory turnover, reduce prepayments, and improve the average collection period for accounts receivable. Now, if we were going to make that a SMART recommendation, let's say that we were going to make it SMART for improving the average collection period for accounts receivable. Okay, let's make sure that's excuse me, make sure that's specific. Maybe accounts receivable from the large corporate accounts are being kind of lazy, and they're not getting money to you for between 30 and 60 days in most cases. So let's say that we want to, for the national accounts, we want to reduce the average collection period to 21 days. Let's make that a goal. That's very specific, and that's also got a specific number attached to it. So we've given it a metric, 21 days. Okay. How about attainable? Is this possible? Okay. Well, let's look to other companies that maybe have done the same thing and see what kind of results they've gotten. Let's look to companies that do have a 21-day or less accounts receivable turnaround. So we can demonstrate that it's attainable and that it's been done before. We can also look to relevance. If you want to be able to post earnings quicker, then you certainly want to be able to receive accounts quicker. So that's in that particular situation that makes it relevant. How about time bound? Do we want this to be a nebulous goal with an unending beginning and end? Or do we want to tell our client, hey, we want to start doing this first quarter 2018, get through the holiday season, and then start changing the way that we encourage our national accounts to pay quicker? So that's when we start the effort. We're going to do it for a year. And then we're going to look back and we're going to measure how well we did in terms of looking at how much we've reduced that average accounts payable turnaround. So we've created something that's specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. And there might be some other specifics that you want to put in there that are attainable, such as offering a small discount if it's paid within 14 days. Say you get a 2% discount on your entire invoice. If it's paid within 2 weeks, say you get a 1% discount if it's paid within 30 days. So if everyone takes advantage of that discount, you're going to have an average of 21 days or less. That's just one example of how you can make it specific, attainable, and relevant. Okay. So what questions do we have about SMART recommendations? Any at all? And it's okay if you don't have any questions now, but just make sure that you hit us up later on when you're developing your own recommendations. You can even send them over on Friday and say, hey, how does this look? And we'll be happy to give you feedback. What we're not going to be able to do is help you at 10:30 on Sunday night because we're already getting into our jammies and brushing our teeth by then. So, especially Jim, who's probably been at the gym.
Yes, well, my gym closes early on Sunday, but that's another story. Yeah, okay.
Here's a reminder, you've got a career module attached to your portfolio. If you're taking your classes in step, there's always a career module attached to your portfolio. This one is due on the fourth Friday, not the fourth Sunday. So make absolute sure that you are doing the work in the career module by the last Friday. Do not go in on the last Saturday or Sunday and expect it to still be open because the entire class will have closed by then. You can find your career module by going to My Stuff. It's listed as a separate class. It's a 1 credit hour class. It's a really easy A. All you have to do is download the material and take the quiz. And it's very informative. It helps you, in this case, perform career research that's relevant to determining what company is a good fit for you, what company might be a good stepping stone on your career path according to your career goals, that kind of thing. So just a friendly reminder. Okay, so we've got a wrap slide for you, and it looks a little bit like this. This is a quick review of what we try to accomplish in the course called Portfolio 2. The main skills that we hope to enhance will be your research, your analysis, and your writing skills, and your ability to put together a professional-looking business report. The main asset will be your market analysis report. There will be other work samples that you produce that you might be interested in displaying on your digital portfolio, especially if they're relevant to the line of work that you'd like to be in. But the main asset will be that market analysis report that you complete in week 4. So here are some tips and takeaways. Always let the research guide your recommendation. Never go in with preconceived notions, and try your hardest not to make the report about what you think. We try to help you with that by disallowing first-person language. Do not use I think, I feel, or my opinion is. Because when you do that, you reduce yourself from a research analyst to a single member of a focus group. One person's opinion is much less valuable to your client or your boss than the collective opinions of 10,000 or 100,000 people. It's your job as the market researcher to discover what those 10,000 or 100,000 people think. Those are your current or future buyers. Right? So that's why it's important to use third person. Let the research guide your recommendations. Okay, the next one. Know that market analysis is continuous. The intelligence cycle never ends. As soon as you finish one job and present your recommendations, it's off to start all over again. And that's because information comes at us so quickly nowadays. It's not like it was 30 or 40 years ago before we had the internet and you were getting information daily in a paper or weekly in a magazine, right? So market analysis is continuous. The third thing to understand is that you should be willing to collaborate, especially because there's so much information to go through. You need to look outside your firm and outside your team for expert help. Don't be afraid to ask for help from journalists who specialize in your industry, for instance, or officers in professional organizations who might have some deep history that goes back years, just as a couple of examples. They can help make your work easier and more efficient. Fourthly, strive to be understood. We as communicators, it's incumbent upon us to be heard and understood. So we can have the best recommendations in the world, but if we're not being clear to our client or to our boss, then it's not going to matter very much. So communication is probably the single most important factor in making a good presentation and having good conclusions that are understood and are persuasive and are accepted by the people that you did them for. Finally, the fifth thing, be comfortable that analysis takes practice. This is true for anything that we might want to do, whether it's downhill skiing or singing, right? Research and analysis is exactly the same thing. As time goes by, if you do this more often, you will get better not only at writing the reports, but at putting them together in logical order and making sure that your conclusions draw from your findings and making sure that your recommendations draw from your conclusions. When we look at your work, especially in the market analysis report, we're going to look at the beginning and we're going to look at the end, and we're going to see if it all stayed together along the same objective. Okay? So one of the important things that you want to be able to do is to string this report together in logical fashion and make sure that you don't wander off in another direction. Whatever your objective was to begin with, that's where you want to stick when you get to the recommendations, and that's going to be much more effective and persuasive for your client as well. So fifth, be comfortable that analysis takes practice. It does for everybody, including me and Jim. Right? All right. So anything else you want to add? I heard you take a breath.
Are you talking to me?
I am. I know you wanted to say something.
No, I think you covered everything. You covered my my pet peeve on the executive summary, which is key.
Okay.
And you've covered it all. I would just emphasize this course is heavy into research. So if this is this is in this week that we're in, there is no, we are in week 3, right?
We are. Still, yeah.
we in this week that we're in, there's no weekly assignment per se, a research assignment, I should add. There is the assignments that Nikki's gone over, but there's not that research assignment like the one you had in week 1 and 2. So why is that? It's so that you can spend some time putting this final report together, because it draws from the research you did in week 1, the research you did in week 2, and it begins to come together. And if there's other research that you feel still needs to be done, I encourage you to go ahead and do that. Now, in any other class, you might blow it off and assume that you can just kind of maybe get by, and I guess you could here too. But I have to be honest with everybody and say I probably grade this assignment 4 tougher than any other. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I grade it tougher than probably any other assignments that I grade. Not that I grade them easy, but I'm really looking at the detail of what you put together in this, because this is your digital portfolio that we're building it for. And I don't want you to put up something on the digital portfolio that a potential employer is going to look at and say, gee, that's, it's a mess. So I mean, I'm just saying, folks, if you're going to put this on your digital portfolio, make sure you give it some time and attention.
Excellent advice. By the way, you can use the feedback that you get from your instructors to make your report even better than it was when you submitted it. It's not unethical to make those changes before you put your work up on your portfolio. Just because you get a B+ doesn't mean that you have to post a B+. You can post an A+. Okay.
Yeah. Make it better. Make it better than it was when you submitted it. And that just means that you're putting up something more impressive for your potential employers out there.
Yeah. All right. Well, everybody, thanks for hanging with us for this hour. I want to give you one last opportunity to ask any questions that might have popped into your head. And hearing none, I guess we'll call it a wrap. I invite everybody to reach out to your instructor, whether it be me or Jim, and just make sure that you're headed in the right direction. We love to answer your questions and help you out, even if it's just brainstorming. It's what we get paid to do, and we like to talk to people. So reach out to us, and I hope you have a great evening, and I hope you do well on all your work that's due this week. Thanks, everybody.
Right.
Night.
Thanks, Nikki. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Ingrid. See you guys later.